Hello, everybody. It's Jen. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here tonight. I am excited about this topic. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. There's my YouTube window playing in the other window. Just muted it. Sorry about that. I am glad you're here, but I'm curious who we have with us tonight. So let me know who's here in the chat. Say hello and tell us where you're chatting in from tonight as we talk about shoulder season and winter camping. I do just want to start by giving a special shout out and thanks to all my channel members. You make these live streams possible, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. So thank you so much. And, it's interesting. I was thinking about gratitude today. And I know it's almost cliche to talk about gratitude in November, but it wasn't Thanksgiving that got me thinking about it. I was watching an interview with the Penn State head football coach who had his first win. He's an interim coach, and he was reduced to tears because he was so humbled. And it gave me pause to reflect, even on how I started out this live stream tonight. And I think it's always good to pause and just be really grateful for the people in your life. So I'm grateful for the channel members, but I'm grateful really for all of the Tab community. I made so many friends who are important to me and are a real blessing in my life. So thank you, and thanks for taking time to join tonight. And thanks, speaking of members and gratitude, I do have a special thank you resource for members. And if you jump over to the member community tab on my on my YouTube channel, you'll see a link for members for my winter checklist. So if you hop over there, it's a special resource just for you to say thanks. Well, let's jump right into it. When we talk about winter camping, absolutely. Sorry, I thought I was on camera. I don't know if you could hear me. I hope you could. I absolutely love winter camping. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I'm excited to talk about this. Let me jump over to the chat and see who we have with us tonight. We have, I see Sandy and Liz and Janet, Emily Ann. We have quite a crew. Here we go. My comments panel was missing. We have, of course, Audrey was the first one here. Stefano from Cincinnati, welcome. Maureen. Hey, there's Scott. Oh, you saw Ken and Kathy. That's so awesome. Julia's home in Virginia. Jeff is on from Columbus. Hi, Jeff. Who else did I miss? Gail. Awesome. I'm glad you're here. We've missed each other a few times. Linda, Kristen. Great. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. I'm sure we'll have some folks trickling in as we go. I tried something new. I put a poll in the chat this time, and I'm curious. It was asking people where they were in terms of being a winter camper. And of course, now I can't see the chat. Oh, there it is, with the poll. And it looks like most of you try not to camp before freezing. And I get that. We'll talk a little bit about that. Somebody doesn't like camping at all. They're into summer already. Some people will take a risk, and some people love winter camping. I think that those of us who love winter camping are definitely going to be in the minority tonight. A couple more. Leslie and Randy and Irene. Welcome. So, there are 5 problems, if you will, that people seem to have when it comes to winter camping. And I'm going to talk about those 5 issues and try to give you solutions. But as usual, the tab community is so great. So I'm going to ask if you have some thoughts to put them in the chat as we go along and we work through those issues. I think some people are here because they love the connection. Some people are here because they're interested in winter camping, and hopefully we'll have something for both of you tonight. The first issue that I see people, when I say issue, I mean things that sort of are hangups for them that people have when it comes to winter camping is, drum roll please, I lost my place. I have notes tonight. Keep me on track. This is definitely the most common thing I see. And that is, it's fall, it's shoulder season. I see that it's cold at night, maybe below freezing overnight for a couple hours. Can I camp or do I need to winterize? If that's a question you have, let me know in the chat, because I've seen this question quite a bit in the Facebook groups. And the answer is not going to necessarily be satisfying, but it is the answer. The answer is your pipes could freeze at any point below freezing temperatures. That being said, if you're willing to assume a little risk, you can push it, especially if it's only going to be below freezing for a few hours. I've been camping now. You do this at your own risk, but personally, I will camp when it's below freezing, and especially if it's going to get above freezing during the day. When I'm out west, a lot of times it can dip into the 20s overnight, but it's right back up into the 60s during the day. So it's not staying frozen. There are a couple things you do need to know, though, if you're camping below freezing. If you're connected to city water, so if you have a hose connected to your camper from a hydrant, then there's a good chance that that hose is going to freeze. Doesn't mean that hose is going to be ruined. Usually you just have to wait until the temperatures warm up a bit. This actually happened to me this fall, and it's not the first time. I didn't realize it was going to get below freezing. I had dropped to a lower elevation, so I thought it would be warmer, and it did get below freezing. And the water froze. I was taking a shower, and I wondered why water pressure was so poor. Well, the water pressure was poor because there was ice in the line of the water hose, not my camper lines, but the water hose going from the hydrant to my camper. Just takes a couple hours for the sun to warm that up and thaw it, and you're fine. But that is something you need to think about. When I know it's going to be below freezing, I'll actually take the water hose off, fill up the freshwater tank, and use the freshwater tank. Another thing that I have seen people do, this was actually recommended to me by a couple of sisters I met up in Banff who had a tab. They were really interesting people. I loved meeting them. But they said they had been up there for a while and had a lot of freezing temperatures. They stuffed a towel into the Nautilus compartment on the camper to reduce the cold air that was coming in. And I thought that was really smart. Something you probably have with you and just helps block some of that cold air from coming in. Of course, when it gets down around freezing, I'll turn on the tank heaters. The Black Canyon package on tabs do come with tank heaters, and they do a nice job of keeping the tanks warm, the water warm, and keeping it from freezing, which is nice because then you're not having to work as hard to heat up the water with the Alde. So, couple, rules of thumb. Again, could your pipes freeze? Sure, they could freeze. I have not yet had it freeze, but I don't know the science well enough to know. I do know people ask about wind chill. Wind chill doesn't make your pipes freeze. Wind chill is how it feels to you. It's not the actual temperature that will cause things to freeze. So when the actual thermometer dips below 32, your water can freeze. Now, that being said, I have camped with a winterized camper, and you can certainly do that. And in a little bit, we'll talk more about some of those tips for camping with a winterized camper. But I'm curious, from the community, what do you guys do if it's going to get below freezing? Is there anything you love to do to sort of protect yourself? Let me take a look in the chat and see if we have any ideas. Nixie loves winter camping. I bet she does. Rocky used to love the snow and cold, but every year it gets harder for him. I can see the snow actually causes him pain. So I do have some boots for him that I picked up. Actually, I have a few products from Canada Pooch that I love, and I have a special winter camping Amazon list. If you go to my website, you can access the Amazon store right from store from the top. I will say that some of the Canada Pooch stuff is pricey, but it's really good for dogs. I have a slush suit. Rocky gets ice balls on his fur that take forever to thaw, and then you get water all over when it does thaw. So I have a slush suit that I'll use for him, and it does keep him warmer. I also have picked up these Canada Pooch boots that have straps on them so that they don't fall off and he can't kick them off. And then he has a few sweaters. I'm sure if you've seen pictures of Rocky, you know what he looks like in his cute little sweaters, but they actually do a great job keeping him warm. There's a brand called Fit Warm that I have found that are not expensive, and he looks rather handsome in them, and they give him a little warmth. And then he has a couple parkas. So really, really helps keep him warm and enjoying the winter. Scott keeps a 12-volt compressor in his truck so I can blow out my lines. Yeah, I have a ARB air compressor that can be handy for blowing out air. I've heard people suggest a bicycle pump, so I tested that once, and I thought I'd blown out all the water using the bicycle pump, and then I connected a regular compressor, and more water came out. So I'm a little leery about the bike pump for blowing it out. And with the tire inflator, you run the risk of either not having enough pressure, or if you can't control the air pressure on it, having too much pressure if it's a powerful one. So the tire inflators could work, but your mileage may vary on those. Jeff says, I run the heat in my previous trailer while towing around freezing or below. Haven't tried that situation with the tab yet. You know, I have never done that. I have found it heats up pretty well. And with the tank heaters, I don't really need to do that, but I can understand the thinking behind that. One thing people don't realize with the Alde, especially if you're going to be on shore power, you can run it both on shore power and propane, and you can set the priority to either one. What I like to do in that case is run it on both and prioritize shore power. That way, when it reaches the desired temperature, the propane kicks off and it, conserves propane. But I find it heats up pretty quickly. Now, this afternoon, I came out around 4:30 or 5 and turned on the heat because I knew I'd be coming out here for the live stream. I'm actually at home this week. And by the time I got out here at 6:30, it was really warm. I don't know how long it had been warm for, but it was very cozy. So let me see a couple of the other comments. Maureen says, I spend as much time outside as possible when camping. So do you find, let me see, I've lost it here. I'm going to put it up here so it doesn't bounce off the screen. I spend as much time outside as possible when camping. So do you find you are inside mode or just out with very warm clothes, etc.? It depends. I do a lot of remote work, so it doesn't change that much. I'm still inside doing remote work during a weekday. On the weekends, I don't typically just sit outside. I go out and explore. And I certainly, when it's snowing, I embrace that and go out and explore more because I'm looking for great photography opportunities. That happened when I was in Colorado this year, up in the mountains, mid-September. We had early snow, and I definitely went to higher elevation so that I could enjoy that snow. It was great. I absolutely loved it. Let's see here. Kristen says, I use the freshwater tanks, towels in the Nautilus compartment, turn on tank heaters, unplugged city water, and I turn the heat way up inside. I was really worried about the pipes and low point drain. Yeah, the low point drains could be a vulnerability. A lot of people don't think about it, but your gray tank and the gate that opens and closes the gray tank can be a vulnerability. And of course, your freshwater drain as well. M wants to give it a try. What to do to stay warm with the Alde. I find if I just run the Alde, it stays warm. I don't have to do anything extra. And I've camped pretty cold. I usually take it with me to families for the holidays. I use it as the guest bedroom when I mooch dock. They have a 30 amp connection for me. So it gets pretty cold. And I've never been cold inside the tab. As a matter of fact, I mean, now I know not everybody is like me. I do like to keep the tab at 59 at night. A little warmer during the day, but at night, 59 is plenty warm for me and Rocky. I usually have it set to automatically warm up before I get out of bed. So around 4:30 or 5 in the morning, it'll bounce up to the 60s. But I've never had a problem feeling warm in the tab in the winter. And I know other people have camped in cold temperatures in the tab. So I'd be curious what your experience is. Liz says she used the towel hack in Oklahoma. Yep. Winter rated sleeping bags saved us when it got down to 0, and a hat. Yeah, it's a good idea because anything can happen at any time, right? There could be a power outage at the campground. If you're boondocking, you could run out of propane or battery. So it's always a good idea if you're winter camping to have a backup plan for staying warm. Or if you lose all heat for some reason and you don't have a backup plan, please put your safety first. And we don't need hypothermia. Go ahead and leave if you have to. But I think a sleeping bag's a great idea. As a matter of fact, when I do winter travel, I usually keep a sleeping bag in the car just in case something were to happen. I have a non-tab trip coming up to visit family over the holidays, and it's a trip to New England, so I'll have a pretty warm sleeping bag in the car with me just as a backup plan. All right. Let's see here. Oh, there seem to be two concerns: keeping the pipes from freezing and then keep personally warm. I think the latter concern is not really a concern. The Alde does a fine job keeping me warm. I agree, Scott. I mean, I can't say enough about the Alde. And not only does it keep you warm, but it does it quietly. I was recently camping at a campground and it got cold overnight. It was probably around freezing. I don't know that it got below freezing, but I could hear the big rig's heat kick on and the forced air blowing. And I was just so thankful for the Alde. It's such a quiet, peaceful night's sleep. All right, so let's talk about problem number 2. And that is, we already talked about that, staying warm. And I think we've pretty much covered our bases there. And along with that, number 3 is keeping the pets warm. Already touched on that as well. So the next one is related to boondocking. I'm curious if you have boondocked in the winter. I have a little bit, but not a ton. And I haven't found it to be that much different than shore power, other than you want to make sure that you have enough battery, because you do need a little bit of battery to keep the Alde going. That being said, it's really not any different. You're just heating off propane instead of shore power. And the one thing I will say about winter camping, if there's snow and it's deep snow, you want to make sure that your Alde exhaust is clear. You don't want that to be blocked by snow, or you could get carbon monoxide poisoning. So that is the one consideration if you're boondocking and running the Alde off propane. The other thing, I see a lot of people using cheap 1500 watt space heaters instead of the Alde. I'm not a big fan of that. I know people do it, but when you read about house fires and camper fires, a lot of times you'll find a space heater involved because it overloads and I'm not real technical here, but you're basically overloading the power system, especially if you have the space heater running and the Alde for hot water, or the space heater running and you run the microwave or a hairdryer at the same time. Really, it's not a great idea. So I personally don't use a space heater. In addition to the safety element, if it's one more thing to carry, and I do find the Alde heats up fast enough that I can be comfortable. A couple ideas coming in here. Is that on home 15 amp household? I've tried but not warmed up. Yeah, the Alde on 1 kilowatt, which is what you should run it on for 15 amp service, is not nearly as powerful as if you're running it on 2 kilowatt, and you do need 30 amp for 2 kilowatt. So if you're at home, run it on propane. I'm at home right now, so I'm running the Alde on propane, and it is nice and toasty. In my first 20-degree night, I cranked the heat way up. I woke up to a rainforest in condensation. That is problem number 5, and we are going to get to that, so stick around for that. Memory foam is cold to sleep on, hence the sleeping bags. Yeah, memory foam not only gets cold, but if it's been cold, your memory foam is going to be harder than what you're used to. A little less comfortable. Scott has a great idea again. Does help to have some sort of small fan to move the air around, as the heat differential can be significant between ceiling and the floor without one. Agreed, Scott. And again, the Max Air, if you've watched any of my live streams or talked to me before, I love the Max Air fan. The Max Air fan was an upgrade, and you can run it closed in ceiling fan mode, which is awesome. If you run it on just the lowest speeds, it's pretty much silent too. See what else. Hard to live in harsh winters, I think David is asking. I'm not full-time, so I can't speak to that. The harshest part of the winter, I am usually in my house. Although I do spend time camping in winters, and when it's cold, really cold, I'm definitely winterized. I'm not running water through the systems and risking, breaking pipes. But as far as staying warm, I've not found it a problem with the Alde. Now, you're probably going to burn through more propane if you're using propane, or it's going to cost a little more to heat, but I haven't found it to be a problem. If it's going to be harsh weather, you're going to need to go to somewhere warmer, or else you won't, or just get used to using the camper without water and using campground water to shower. And what I do is I've got a two-gallon Dometic water container with a USB rechargeable pump, and I will use that. And for fresh water while I'm in the camper, and I'll flush with a gallon jug of water. But I will use the cassette toilet and put in some RV antifreeze. I've not had a problem doing that. Again, your mileage may vary. In the Tab 360, the bathroom is got this beautiful heating vent, so it stays nice and toasty. So, I know in my Tab 320, the bathroom was the coldest part of the camper. So you really have to be a little more careful when your temperatures are dropping in that area. Maureen, I'm going to get to your question when I get to the condensation question. Says, I did some reading on space heater. You were right, but the space heaters that are 1500 watts are not to be used in an RV, only 600 and under. Yeah, I personally wouldn't use any space heater. I've always been very fire safety conscious, and I just don't think it's worth it. You've got a great heater in the Alde, and I think it's well worth it. I wouldn't use a wood stove in a camper. I don't want to smell like smoke. And again, I think that's a safety risk. And that's just personal. Other people can, but I personally wouldn't do it. Yes, don't use water, but what temp can the camper sustain to make it? I'm not sure I understand your question, David. Maybe, are you asking how cold you can camp in the camper? I've camped as low as in my first tab, I camped in 11-degree weather. I know other people have camped colder. So as long as you're willing to spend the money on the heat source, whether it be electricity or propane, I think you can camp almost as cold as you want. New Camp Winterizing video does say to put antifreeze in the cassette. Yes, I do put antifreeze in the cassette. Oh, Stephen, welcome. Glad you're with us. Yeah, David, I've not heard anybody say it was too cold to stay in the tab, so I think it gets 30 below here. So propane, I can't speak to those temperatures. I've not tried them, so if you do try it, let us know how it goes. It's pretty rare for Pittsburgh or Western Pennsylvania or Ohio to hit 30 below. It has happened, but it's pretty rare. And I'm not sure I would. Here's what I worry about in that type of cold is plastic. Anything that's plastic gets very brittle when it gets cold, and I wouldn't want to risk breaking something. I can't think of anything specific on the camper, but you've got like the window shades. So if it's been sitting out in that kind of cold, I don't know that I'd want to accidentally, bump into it and break it. Vic says he slept down to 10 degrees in his Tab 400, 68 degrees with propane, and switched to 1K to carry the camper all night. Very comfortable. Let me see here. The batteries cannot run the heating system without propane being on. That is correct. You will drain your battery in very short order. First of all, your battery, if you've got a 100 amp hour battery, may not even support it. You would need a battery and an inverter to try to run it off battery, but it's just too much power draw. The voltage is very high, and you're going to burn through the battery pretty quickly. 59 seems cold. Hi, Alex. I think because A, I'm under the blankets, B, the Alde's right under my bed, and then C, my little four-legged furnace, Rocky, generates so much heat at night. I usually am warmer than I am cold when it comes to the tab. Liz is also confirming she's used the cassette with RV antifreeze and no issue this past winter. Yeah, the cassette toilet, I feel like, really raises the notch a level for winter camping, because you don't have to worry about the tank gates breaking on it when you're using it, and it works really well. Your fingers break at 30 below. Is that actually true? Are you making that up? I think I've been out in that type of weather before. Full disclosure, I grew up in some cold weather country in the Snowbelt area, and I think we got 30 below, but I can't remember for sure. I definitely remember 20 below a lot as a kid. All right, we're doing well. Let me see what's next on the list. I think we're on to problem number 4, and that is the weather. You can get overconfident. You can fail to see cold weather or snowy weather coming, and that can be problematic. I think along with the weather, the days are shorter and it's harder to get a camp, especially if you're still working, to get to a campsite before dark. And I find it just 10 times harder to back into a site in the dark. A couple of years ago, I was camping in December and I arrived Friday after work and it was pitch dark. And I had the hardest time getting into my campsite because I couldn't see where I was going. Made it very difficult. The weather piece is interesting. If you camp in the Intermountain West, or maybe even, anywhere that's sort of remote, especially that has mountains, I have found that the weather forecasts can be, I don't want to say useless, but less than helpful. I can't tell you how many times it got much colder than what the weather apps were predicting overnight when I was in the mountains. And I do realize elevation does impact how cold it gets at night, but it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. And I have looked on the radar, I looked out my window, seen snow, rain, hail, and looked at the weather apps, and the radar has a hole in it. So you do have to be careful with weather. You need to be prepared for any situation, really. And if you're going west, especially, the temperatures can drop early. Like I said, we had snow in the third week of September when I was in Colorado last year. And I, of course, loved it and was prepared for it. But it is something you really have to be aware of. Steven, you're picking on me. Did you also put water in the cassette when flushing? Yes, I did put water in the toilet with flushing, but I used quite a bit of RV antifreeze to keep it from freezing. I'm sorry to hear that, David. You know, you may want, if it's possible, a lot of people go to Quartzsite, Arizona and boondock for the winter because the temperatures are more hospitable. So, let's see here. The next thing, this is another tip I learned, and I discovered it when I went to Bryce Canyon in the winter a few years back. And that is something you can get for your shoes to help you from slipping, because when there's snow, there's often ice as well. And that is a traction device like micro cleats or Yax tracks really make a huge difference. I picked up a pair when I was at Bryce Canyon. I wanted to do just a little bit of light hiking. I wasn't going to do anything too serious, but I knew I needed some traction. So I picked up a pair of Yax tracks. I was really impressed with how good they were. And, you know, the older I get, the less I relish the idea of falling and hurting myself on ice, because you can hit your head, you can screw up your back. A few winters ago, I was walking to work, and I wouldn't have thought there would have been ice, but there was just a small patch of black ice on a sidewalk, and I started to slip, planted my leg to try to brace myself or stop myself, and I ended up getting a knee sprain. So traction is really important in the winter. So what does Steven say? Oh, Steven, I'm going to hit this a little bit later. We're almost there. But it is the burning question about condensation. Jeff, you are right. Tab is not rated as a 4-season camper. It's a 3-season camper. The 4-season would allow you to use your water system, but you can't with the Tab. As far as heat, though, as long as you have enough, propane or connected to shore power, then you can manage pretty much any type of temperature. I can't speak to 30 below, but like I said, I know people who have done it at 0 or below 0. What type of NOAA weather radio do you suggest? That's a great question, Gary. I have a Midland weather radio that is no longer made. I tried to share a link earlier this year, and I see that they no longer make it, but they do make other weather radios. What I would suggest people do is look at the reviews on Amazon before they purchase one. Order it from somewhere like Amazon where you can read reviews and ratings, and look for one that's been purchased a lot and has good ratings. But what I like about the Midland, I'll tell you the features I like about it since the model isn't available. It can run off battery or shore power. So if I'm on shore power, I'm not blowing through the batteries. It has an alert, so it will start going off if I'm asleep. I can adjust the loudness. It also will play the forecast for me. So if I'm somewhere without connectivity and I can get a weather radio channel, I can get the forecast for the day. And those are really the important things, I think. I do have to manually change the channel when I get to a new location, and that's one of the first things I typically do is find the local NOAA station. I've been to a few places where you can't get weather radio reception, usually remote mountain areas, but in most cases I can get a weather radio reception. Liz with another tip: we used RV antifreeze to flush with till we got to warmer weather, then switched back to RV antifreeze on the way home. Yeah, I definitely use more RV antifreeze than water when I'm doing winter. Yep, it will go through the batteries pretty quickly. So if you can do it on shore power, that's optimal because you can save batteries. If you can use rechargeable batteries, that's probably not a bad way to go either. Good call, Liz. The other thing about traction is you might need traction for your tow vehicle. Your trailer isn't a powered axle, so I'm not sure it makes a huge difference what kind of tires, as long as they're safe tires, you have on the trailer. But on your tow vehicle, good tires, all-season tires, off-road tires are important. Probably the most important part of traction is having good tread. But you may need some traction. They have traction mats you can put under your tires. I know when I grew up as a kid, my dad always had a bag of sand in the back of his truck. I know other people have used kitty litter. In a worst case scenario, you can pull your floor mats out and use those for traction. But traction is really important if you're going to be at a campsite. And if you're going to be at a campsite where you're going to get snow, a shovel comes in handy. I was in Montana once and there was a forecast for significant snow. I picked up a shovel. First of all, we moved to a part of the park that wasn't expecting the same degree of snow, because the last thing you want to do is become somebody who needs to be rescued. So you always put safety first, especially don't do anything that's going to endanger emergency personnel and force them to have to rescue you. But I picked up a shovel at a Walmart and was prepared. I didn't end up needing it, but had we had more snow, I would have been ready. Yep, extra propane can be really helpful, or top it off if you can. Oh, that's good advice, Jeff. Antifreeze. I know I have gone to South Carolina in March before, and you can come back to some pretty cold temperatures. And um, even in the north, by late spring, you might not find it in the stores. I try to keep 2 gallons on hand at all times, just in case I need it. And I will, if we get a warm stretch in December, which isn't unusual, I'll de-winterize, go camp for a week, and then come back and winterize. So it's always helpful to have extra antifreeze on hand. Ah, pine branches, last resort for traction. Been there, done that. Uh-oh. Not great, huh? So yeah, being able to get yourself out is as important as being able to get to a campsite when it's snowing. I was, and some of you have heard this story before, but I, on one trip, ran into 2 different blizzards. The first one I just talked about a second ago, but on my return trip, I was trying to outrun, I'll use that lightly, I wasn't speeding, outrun a blizzard because I needed to get back to work the following Monday. So I made it as far as Spearfish, South Dakota, and stayed at a KOA. They stayed over the road because of the weather, and I rode out the blizzard there. And I stayed there for 3 days, I think, 2 or 3 days. And even when I left, the winds were blowing. What I didn't realize is out east, the snow gets higher. Out west, it just blows everywhere. It doesn't pile up in the prairies and plains like it does out here. So even after I left the KOA, snow would blow across the highway and ice, and it's just not great. So if I can avoid traveling in that type of weather, I definitely do. We haven't mentioned it. So now, Vic, I don't know what kind of battery you have, but the new camp batteries, I believe all of them come with the Battleborn battery heater. So if it's going to be below 35, I flip on that battery heater so that the battery can charge. Now, if your battery's inside the tab, then the Alde is going to keep it warm. If you have a 360 with the lithium upgrade, your battery is actually under the camper. So that battery heater is really going to come in handy. We traveled with traction boards this past winter. Beach camping was on our list. Yep. You need those type of traction boards for sand. The other thing that can give you more traction in snow or sand is to air down your tires a little bit. Now, you can't drive at highway speeds with tires that have been aired down to 20 psi. But if you can drop your tire pressure and have a way to reinflate them, that can give you a huge advantage. All right, are we ready to talk about problem number 5, condensation? And if you're camping in cold weather, you do have to think about just staying dry, not only from condensation, but you track snow in. So let's talk a little bit about those issues. I was camping last week. Should use the word camping loosely there. I was at New Camp and I stayed in the service center, and it got down to, I'm going to say, around 30 degrees. I knew I had to crack a window or I would have condensation. So I just put the window in vent position rather, and that was enough to not get condensation with me and Rocky. The vents, I don't know if you know this, but the windows have 2 positions: fully closed, which the little tab on the handle is close to you. It's behind the red slot. But if you put that little tab in the red slot on the windows, and I think it's red on all of them, I'm not sure, have to look, but I guess it's not red in all of them, in the slots, then you're going to be in vent. And especially on a cold, windy night, you'll feel that cool air coming in. And somebody asked me earlier, I don't remember who it was. Somebody asked me, do I open the vent when I run the ceiling fan on the max air? I used to sleep with the vent open in the winter to ventilate, to help with condensation, but I found the vent is just good enough. So if I'm going to run the fan for just a little circulation, I won't open the vent. If it's too warm and I need to cool it down, then yes, I'll open the vent for a couple minutes. I'll also open the vent if I'm cooking. Anytime I use propane, I like to have a window open, and I like to ventilate with the fan. So it does get cold when you do that, but when I'm cooking with propane, I just like that extra safety. The other thing, if you do get condensation, wipe everything down. It's not ideal. It's not great. Not only does it feel uncomfortable, but it's just not great for the camper to get condensation. So vent, vent, vent. And even when it's not cold and you're not running the heat, you want to ventilate. It's very tight, tight in here as far as airflow, which is good. It's well insulated. You don't have air leaking, but you want to ventilate. Between me and Rocky, evidently what's the word? It begins with the EX. There's a word for this. Somebody help me out. Is it? Oh, it's not expire. We're not dying. Anyway, when you exhale, you put moisture into the air and you need to ventilate. The other thing is, I mentioned, you track in snow, and because unless you have a tent, which I think would be, I don't want to say impossible, but it would be less than ideal to put that up in really cold, snowy weather. There's nowhere really to leave your shoes outside because they're going to get snowed on. Or they'll be freezing cold when you go to put them on. So I have a mat just inside the door. But even so, you track in snow and you've got to dry things off. I love microfiber towels, especially for Rocky. If he's just got a little snow and we don't have the slush chute on, whether it's raining or snowing, the microfiber towels are amazing. And I love the Sea to Summit ones because they dry fast and they actually dry you off. There are a few different types of quick dry towels out there, but the Sea to Summit ones that I have on my Amazon winter camping list by far are my favorites. They actually dry you, they're soft, and then they dry pretty quickly. Julia says she will vent the bathroom fan. Oh yeah, and that's a smaller fan, smaller vent, so not as much cold air coming in. Liz says vent, vent, vent. Preferably not the one beside you. Oh, for the window. Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes Rocky's putting off enough heat that I do the one that's right beside me. but I know not everybody loves the cold as much as me. It's funny because I'm in here right now and I can feel myself, because I don't have anything vented because I'm not spending the night. I can feel myself getting a little stuffy. M wants to know, when winter camping and Tab is winterized, what do you do for water, washing pots and pans? I can use paper towels, dishes. So I will say, if I'm doing winter camping with water, with it winterized, I typically don't go for more than 2 to 3 days, because I don't do campground showers, and you really will want to wash. And even though I bring water, you're not going to want to put that much water down into your gray tank with it winterized. I'll do just a little bit for teeth brushing or washing my face, but I don't do extensive hot water. So I will say I only do 2 or 3, and I wash the dishes when I get home, pots and pans. The other thing is, skip the pots and pans and use an air fryer, or cook before you come and just reheat your food. That will save on cleanup as well. And then there's always going out to eat. So those are some options for cooking and for cleanup. As far as water, though, for brushing my teeth and washing my face, I'll put a little, I have like I mentioned, a 2-gallon Dometic water jug, and I'll put some water in a tea kettle, heat it up, and, rinse, put it on, pour it on my washcloth, wash my face, so that, and do what I need to do with hot water from the tea kettle. So that works pretty well. Let's see. I think I'm caught up. Amazingly. What other questions do you have? We got through the 5 problems. I haven't checked the poll recently. Let me see where we are. We're still at, nope. 65% of you try not to camp below freezing temperatures. 12% of you say you're not a winter camper, or cold weather camper. You want to know when summer is. Looks like maybe 1 person will risk sub-freezing temperatures, and 15%, there's a couple of us who love winter camping. So that's very helpful. Let's see. Awesome. I'm curious, does anybody have winter camping planned? Do you have any trips? Are you camping for New Year? I've been thinking about camping for New Year this year. I haven't done anything about it, but it's something I was toying with the other day. I actually wanted to get out this week camping, but I spent a lot of time this weekend for my day job working, and so everything wasn't ready to pack up the camper and go out again. We carried a solution of vinegar and water for light dishwashing. Prefer to use a wash station and a campground for messier pots. Yeah, some campgrounds have a wash station and some don't. So if you have one, that's ideal, obviously. I have portable, so if I was at Ohio State Park, I have little portable wash basin that I could use and dump the water in the gray. They have not gray tank, but gray water receptacles throughout the campgrounds and most of the Ohio State parks, so you could do that. Stephen is doing an overnight this Friday, but it's going to be the 60s during the day. Yeah, you're in North Carolina. I don't know that counts as true winter camping yet. Yeah, probably not till maybe January, February. Janet said she's heading to Arizona at the end of January. Yeah, that's smart. Go into warmer climates. That's smart. Ooh, you're going to love that lithium package. Yeah, you could end up with cold weather camping, Julia. That's for sure. I've ran into it. Oh yeah, good to be prepared. Not that cold yet. Good. Stephen, I may bring a parka. It's interesting because I find even when it's like, I love my down jackets because even when it's 40 or 50, that is just so cozy and it doesn't seem to get too hot. So that's not a bad idea. Harvest Host. Okay. Yeah, my friends used to go in February to South Carolina. They've pushed it back, but they spent one night, I want to say it was at Hungry Mother State Park, and they woke up and it was really cold, but they wouldn't have known it because they were so toasty with the Alde in their 400. So, um, Virginia can get cold, especially when you get into the mountains. You definitely should, Em. It's really invigorating to get that cold air when you go outside. And the campgrounds are pretty peaceful. Yeah, the salt on the roads. I hear you, Liz. That's not a joy. And I don't have a great way to wash that. I don't want to run a water hose in that type of weather from my home, and we don't have any self-service car washes that I could get to rinse off the frame. So I get that. You know, a fleece lined, I have actually put a pair of Eddie Bauer fleece lined pants in my Amazon store because I discovered those a couple winters ago and I love them. They are so comfortable and so toasty. And I got my brother, who works in construction, a few years back. I got him some of those LL Bean fleece flannel lined jeans, and he really liked those as well. He said it really took the edge off. Uh, the winter clothes and coats do take up a lot of room. So the key is to pack stuff that you can layer and reuse. Lots more t-shirts to wear underneath, and so that you're not sweating on the warmer clothes. Hello, Shannon from Ohio. Oh, do you see Rocky's awake? Hi, bud. He was very happy to come out to the camper tonight. He gets bored when we come home. What breed is Rocky? Rocky is a Shih Tzu. Come here, buddy. He's like, I don't want to go on camera. Come on. He's going to play hard to get. He's not going to come. He spent all day at my feet today while I worked. Hi, Dawn. Yes, you're in Colorado and it's earlier. Gail loves her LL Bean flannel lined jeans. Yeah, you get those lined clothes and they just really are more comfortable. Rocky, when it comes to winter camping, when Rocky was a puppy, he would just run and run and run and never seem to bother him. But every year it's just a little harder for him when it gets cold, and especially when the snow comes. But he does love to put on his winter clothes. Although I've got it so warm, you can see my face is getting red. I think I turned the temperature up to 70 degrees earlier, and I didn't adjust it when I came in. And if you know me, you know I don't like 70 degrees ever in my camper. So it's a lot warmer than what I'm used to. And I've got on this heavy sweater. In the house, I think I've got the thermostat set at 62. So I don't like keeping things too hot. Well, we got a couple more minutes, but this has been a great group. I really appreciate everybody's time. I've enjoyed just hanging out together tonight and talking about winter camping. It's one of my favorite things to do. I even got Dawn to do it with me a couple winters ago. We did a New Year's camping event and it was fun. But if you haven't done it, it's definitely worth a try. Even if you're doing it winterized for a weekend, it's really enjoyable. It's great to have your pick of excellent sites. I highly encourage you to do it. And if somebody wants to plan a winter event sometime, I definitely could be interested in that. See, Dawn likes her down jacket and down comforter and her Eddie Bauer throw. Yes. I think I did that the first time I winter camped. It can work. Not my favorite thing to do. Another reason I love the cassette toilet, but I know with 400 that's not an option. And it can work. It's just not, it's not the most pleasant way to experience life. But it will work. And you can buy some that are pre-treated. I know some people use like cedar chips or kitty litter or other things in a bag. I've not done those things. Oh, Liz, that's a great idea. We're talking about the winter clothes take up more space in the tab. Hanging rod in the tow vehicle for winter stuff. It's a great idea. Because the coats take up a lot of room, the sweatshirts, the sweaters, bulky. You got bulky clothes going on. If you know Dawn, and if you don't know Dawn, you're about to find out. Dawn wears a lot of pink. And a lot of her camping things are pink. So if you see somebody with a lot of camping pink accessories or wearing pink often, there's a good bet it's Dawn. There you are. So you gonna come say hello? He's like, no, come here. Oh. There's Rocky making an appearance tonight. It's a microphone. Microphone fell off. All right. Well, I think that's about it for the evening. We are going to call it a wrap, but I appreciate everybody. It's been a great time. And since I probably won't talk to you before Thanksgiving, I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. And let me know when you do your first winter camping. I'm excited to hear if this has inspired anybody to get out there and enjoy camping in the off season. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time.